Take your Bibles, if you will, open them to Matthew chapter 6. I am Tim Lapish with the Fellowship Tract League Ministry. Fellowship Tract League Ministry is under the umbrella of the Fellowship Baptist Church in the greater Cincinnati, Ohio area. The pastor of that church is Brother Bill Burrows. He is a Marine, and everything is run just like you'd expect, in tip-top shape. In fact, if he's around and I'm around, I will take my top of my shoe and I'll do one of these jobs to make sure it's shined up when I'm around him. So that's the kind of guy sometimes you like running a ministry called the Fellowship Tract League, which is the largest gospel tract printing ministry in the history of the world. So who remembers that first man who developed that printing press? Anybody got that guy's name down? Yes. I didn't hear. Yes. So since the history of that printing press until now, the Fellowship Tract League has now printed 5 billion gospel tracts and have given them away free of charge all over the world. We pay the shipping too. It's just a ginormous ministry, if I can make up a word, and I've been traveling for them about 7 or 8 years. Prior to that, I pastored Central Baptist Church in Columbus, Ohio. Any Buckeyes out there? Any Buckeyes? We can do the OH. Yes? Yes. OH. You're supposed to go IO. There you go. It's coming. Okay. You say, what is that about? Ask your brother back there. He'll tell you. I went to Ohio State, graduated in 1974. Where were you in 1974? I had a teacher degree, certified in the state of Ohio. I was going to teach math. I don't know why I like math. Do you know why you like anything? My kids like macaroni and cheese. I hate macaroni and cheese. I love Diet Pepsi on the rocks. Forget Coke on the rocks. You know, I don't know why I like what I like, but I wanted to teach math and I wanted to coach. Why did I want to coach? I found out winning is fun, right? Any sports guys out here? A few? No, not many. Okay, maybe I'm in the wrong place tonight. I don't know. I know you have a school that's done pretty well in sports. Kind of looked at their history there. Anyways, that's what I wanted to do. Then God called me to preach. So I ended up graduating with my degree, went to Springfield, Missouri, went to Baptist Bible College, got my theology degree. Then God called me back to Columbus, Ohio, where I went to college there, and ended up taking over the downtown church called Central Baptist Church, second oldest Baptist congregation in the history of Columbus, had dropped down to just 17 very, very senior people. There's nothing left of the congregation. Old rundown area town. Well, I had 5 kids. I now still have 5 kids. I have 16 grandkids. Anybody more than 16 grandkids? Do I get a prize for that or something tonight? Well, that's a lot of grandkids. You know, I think I have a birthday and anniversary every week between the kids and their spouses and the grandkids. At Christmas, we are broke in debt. I need to take the Dave Ramsey course all over again to get my finances straightened out. Just kidding. I love my kids. I am so lucky they all live in Columbus. Now, I would like to live in Florida. My wife, Cindy, no way. She's not leaving those baby grandkids, and they range from 2.5 to 23. No way she's leaving the kids, the spouses, or the grandkids, so I guess I'm stuck in Columbus, right? So we kind of make that work there, but I just love Florida. My parents had retired here, and we do come down a lot. I was here in the church about 5 or 6 years ago. Who remembers me? Where have the rest of you been? I mean, you weren't there that night? No, you had to have been. You had to have been. I had just started with the track league then, and so anyway, I got back to Ohio, took the church, started a Christian school, and guess what I taught in that Christian school? Guess who coached the sports teams? Me, the guy who likes to win. Maybe you're here tonight and you're saying, what in the world is God doing with my life? I just don't understand how He's moved me around the chessboard here and there and over here. What is going on? Well, I figured it out after a while. God revealed His will to me. And I don't know where you're at in God's will, but He'll show you the light when it's time. I stepped down after 30 years. We moved 3 different times from the inner city ghetto finally to the suburbs. I thought, wow, I finally made it to the suburbs. And God says, I'm done with you. Go help the Fellowship Tract League, which our church supported 29 of my 30 years. And so that was a good fit. I thought I tried a year because I'm not a guy to travel. Man, I just hate this travel stuff. I think that's one reason I stayed at that church 30 years. To the pulpit. Well, really, from the bed to the pulpit, to the dining room table, to the bed, to the pulpit, more food. That was my Sunday. I just had it great. All this travel stuff I thought was nonsense for all the missionaries who spent years raising their support. And now I'm doing the same thing. How does that work? What is God doing? You see, I'm in the same dilemma all over again. I told the Tract League, I'll travel a year for you in Ohio. Being in Columbus, I can be anywhere in Ohio a couple of hours. But then 1 year turned into 2 years, and now 2 years has turned into, about 8+ years I've been traveling for them. I don't know how I do it. I just still really disdain traveling. I never would have been a good truck driver. Everywhere I go, I meet people who love to travel, so I say, can we switch positions, and you can do what I do, and I'll do what you do. But it is every single Sunday. The Tract League has become so popular, if I can use that word. People are so intrigued by it that I've gone almost 260+ straight Sundays for the Lord, morning and evening. Now, that's a lot of time on the phone. A lot of times I get canceled at the last second because pastors have double or triple booked me and forgot to write people's names down, and then I'm really dialing on the phone trying to get that place filled. But God has just opened the door in so many states and so many churches, and the Lord has allowed us to raise so much money for the Tract League, and that's the goal. Now, you do have some of our tracts in your back rack there. I will highlight some tracts, but from 1978 until now, again, over 5 billion tracts. If you added up every gospel tract printing ministry in the history of the world, all together, they don't even come close to what this ministry has accomplished. And the church is not a big church. It's an average-sized church, but I'll tell you what, they are all in reaching the world with the gospel. And that's what we're looking for, churches who will go all in with us. And when I say churches, I'm talking about individuals who make up that church, that they'll be all in with us in fulfilling the Great Commission, which is Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost part of the world. And with the Fellowship Tract League, with 5 billion tracts printed and gone all over the world, we are well on our way to doing that and helping thousands of churches and missionaries fulfill that. In fact, we now print, let me see, in English we have 87 titles, in Spanish we have 39 titles, and then we have like 70 or 80 other the major languages of the world that we print tracts, and even the dialects that flow off the major languages, they can read enough of that language to hear the gospel and read it and get saved. It's just amazing what God has done. Now, the really cool part about this is that the tracts are given away free. And when you're a missionary, getting free tracts is really a blessing. That means you don't have to pay for them. And we also pay the shipping. So when we're shipping tracts, we're shipping paper, which in all reality, we are shipping trees all over the world, and we raise the money from churches like you, from individuals, from business people, so we can get those costs paid. Brian Hollis in Bolivia, I met him in Ohio. He's a graduate of Massillon Baptist College, and he was doing an internship at a church for 1 year as the main pastor. He let him know when he was going to be done and going for his support, got his support, got to the field. When he got to the field, he called me. He said, Brother Lapish, I'm in desperation. I don't have any tracts. Can you help me? I texted him the Fellowship Tract League number. I says, you call them and see what they'll do, then let me know the result. 10 minutes later, he texted me back that the Tract League was going to mail him free of charge, including the shipping, 5,000 tracts the very next day. You see, we are the supply line to all of the missionaries that all of the churches support. Without gospel tracts, their ministries would be curtailed in a great way. So we're asking churches to become part of that supply line so we can help missionaries around the world, and not just missionaries, but individuals here in America too. I had a letter came from the Tract League where the letter said, I'll get you the gist of it. There's a man in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, who sits out front of the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, and he hands out anywhere between 200 to 600 tracts every day in the heat of Dallas. Now, you know about heat down here. I'm in Columbus. You know, heat is great for me. But in the heat of the day, he's 89 years old, and he's in a wheelchair. And he gets free gospel tracts from us, hands out thousands of tracts every week. Only God knows how many people are coming to Christ because of his effort. In Matthew chapter 6, Christ is speaking here. He says, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves and break through and steal." Is there anybody here who's never been robbed in their life? Never. One? You've never been robbed. Well, next time you go to McDonald's, Dad, tell him to look, then steal some of his French fries, okay? And when he looks back, there's only a half a plate left or whatever. He'll know what it feels like to be robbed. All three of our church locations, we had just severe vandalism and theft and burglary. People set our church building on fire. They took axes to get inside the offices after they ripped the doors off the hinges. They thought there was money and wine and everything else. I know, crazy stuff. But yeah, our church has been burglarized. And so I know all about this. But the Lord says don't do that. In verse 20 he says, "But lay up for yourselves treasures where? In heaven." See, God's children have been so blessed of God. There's a site called the Joshua site that has some missionary stats. Christianity, according to them, makes up about 33% of the world's population. But even though only 33% claim Christianity as their religion in the whole world, Christians have over 53% of the world's wealth. Do we have a great God or what? Now, all these other religions, the money they have is really splintered down into practically nothing, but Christians have 53% of the world's wealth, yet less than 1 penny of every dollar given to local churches gets to the mission field. That doesn't seem like a right ratio there. So many churches I go to, and you know, every Sunday, 2 churches, 104 churches a year, not counting Wednesdays. I meet a lot of Christians who've been blessed of God, and they've got defined pensions they're waiting on, and they've got money socked away, and they got an IRA and a 401k, and so on and so forth. And then I ask them, could you come off those piles of money and give a little bit to the Fellowship Tract League so we can keep tracts free to missionaries? Well, in verse 21, Jesus says, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." You can't change those 2 words there. You can't say in verse number 21, "Where your heart is, there you'll find your treasure." Jesus, the King of the world, says, no, it's not that way. Find where your treasure is, and that's where you'll find your heart. And if we're laying up treasures in heaven, as he tells us to do, then we will be heavenly minded with our finances. And so many people are just trying to grab and hoard everything they have. And it's good if you have something for retirement. That's great. You can enjoy it in dignity. But again, can't we come off some of the money God has given us and reinvesting it so we can fulfill the Great Commission, which again is what? Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost part of the world. Turn with me to Matthew 8, verse 18. Just a reminder here. "Now when Jesus saw great multitudes about him, he gave commandment to depart unto the other side. And a certain scribe came and said unto him, Master, I will follow thee whithersoever thou goest." Verse 20 is the kicker. "And Jesus saith unto him," this is to the guy who's going to follow him wherever, he says, "The foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head." The King, the Creator of the universe, had nowhere to lay his head. Now on TV you see those commercials all the time about the pillow guy up in Minnesota, and they're everywhere. If I sit at the airport, I see his commercials on there. Jesus did not even have a pillow to lay his head. Just telling the scribe, if you follow me, I don't even have as much as you have now. If the Lord came back tonight, who would have all that money that we have in homes and cars and IRAs and so on and so forth? The Antichrist and his crowd would get all of that. So while we have an opportunity, let's invest in heavenly things, because that's where our treasure should be, because our heart will follow our treasure. He goes on there over in, let's see, Luke chapter 12. Luke chapter 12, I'm going 1 chapter at a time, and that's not good for my self-imposed time limit here tonight. Luke chapter 12, verse number 20. Jesus talking to the foolish rich man who had built bigger and better barns. And back down in verse 16, the parable he spake, verse 16, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully, and he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? And he said, this will I do, I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Like American Christians. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then who shall these things be which thou hast provided? Big question mark there. So is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. We may be rich compared to other people in America around the world, but I think if that's the case, then we may be poor towards God. We should be rich towards God. And when we're rich towards God, we're helping the Great Commission in our local churches getting the job done. One final section here, Colossians chapter 3. Colossians chapter 3, a great portion of Scripture. Verse number 1, the Bible says, if ye then be risen with Christ. If you've been risen with Christ, say amen. Let me hear it. Amen. Right? Okay. Those things which are, back up. If you then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above. So we should be going wholeheartedly after things above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Set your affection, the idea is your love, set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. Could it be possible that we love our things more than we love the things of God? Sometimes it just creeps into our life. And sometimes materialism just creeps into our life before we know it. We are more concerned about what we have than we are about being rich towards God or setting our affection on heavenly things. Look at verse 3. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. And here's the verse. When Christ, here's my thought. There's a little comma there. Who is our life, comma, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. Inside those commas, talking about Christ, who is our life? Is Christ our life? I am consumed with Christ. I am consumed with being a Christian. I am consumed about reaching the world with the gospel. And this is just the basics that I can do for the Lord. But I need to see other people who are consumed with the gospel, other Christians who will say, according to verse 3, verse 4, Christ is our life. Christ is my life. Everything I do centers around Christ. Everything I do centers around Christ. Then we start setting our affection on things above, and then we start becoming rich toward God. I have here what used to be a roll of paper, and I'll move to the side so you can see it a little better. It's about that high, 500 pounds, and when it's all rolled off, it prints 125,000 tracts. I'll give $1 to anybody who can count by ones to 125,000 before I'm done. I think George will be safe in my wallet. I don't think anybody will get there. 125,000 tracts, and this roll of paper costs $250. So for $250, you can reach 125,000 people here in the States. We'll say to the English-speaking people here in the States. If these tracts get shipped over to maybe the island countries like Indonesia and Philippines, they say at least 4 people read each tract. So now, how many people are you reaching? 4 times 125,000 is how many? Who got that? Who said that? Wow, you teach math? Oh, we're buddies. Think about it, 500,000. Now, I know South Florida has millions of people, but I don't think Miami City proper has over 500,000 people. Think about reaching everybody in the city of Miami with the gospel tract. How big of a job would that be? But yet the Fellowship Tract League has done $5 billion. When these tracts go to India, and we send several sea containers a year of 10.5 million tracts and pay the shipping, which could be as high as $6,000, $7,000. And when they get to India, because there's not a whole lot of reading material, and our brother's been there, he's handed out the tracts, I believe, or saw the tracts there. They say at least 8 people read each tract because there's nothing to read. So now 8 times 125,000, 1 million. You had it. You had it, didn't you? You did. Think about that. When's the last time anybody here has reached 1 million people with the gospel? See how the Fellowship Tract League can help you? Now, full disclosure, every year my wife and I buy a roll of paper. We just write that check for $250, and we know what it is to be squeezed financially, too. Remember I talked about those 16 grandkids? Christian school, tuition, helping, oh my goodness, but yet we're not going to let anything get in the way of being rich towards God. So we write that check. Last year we bought 2 rolls of paper. Have no idea what language the tracts were printed in, where the tracts went to. We just know that we're heavily invested. I used to go to church, and here's what I'd ask the church. Would the church buy the Tract League a roll of paper? Someone's probably thinking, yeah, our church could do that. You're probably thinking that right now. But then I learned that's not good enough. Because I was in church in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I asked the church to buy a roll of paper, and I challenged the people to buy a roll of paper, and the church bought 1 roll, and then 16 other people bought a roll of paper. So that was the record that I had as my travels. The Baptist Church in Albuquerque, New Mexico bought 17 rolls of paper. The 17th person was a single mom with 2 kids in Christian school, working a full-time job, and then going to a part-time job after it. She came up to me. She said, Brother Lapish, can I buy a roll of paper on your payment plan? I says, I don't know what you mean. I don't think we have a payment plan. I said, what do you mean? She says, how about $21 a month for 12 months? That's about $250. Can I buy a roll of paper that way? I said, sold. And guess what? She did it. Yeah. Wow. And I've lost track. Maybe she's bought more rolls of paper since that time. Traveling in Ohio, I would try to get all those fundamental churches in Ohio to beat that record of 17. You know, I couldn't get one church to beat that. Some did 4 rolls, some did 8 rolls, until I went to a very small church on the Ohio River, on the Ohio side of the Ohio River, and the area has been devastated with the economy. It's in Appalachia, that region there, and it's just a lot of dope, things like that going on. All the young people, the teens and 20s and that age, are all headed towards Columbus and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh to get jobs, and the people that are left are just living barely on welfare wages. And that pastor told me, he says, we're going to beat that record of 17 rolls of paper. They had about 30 or 40 people in church, and I thought to myself, man, I don't want to see him get disappointed, because he sounded so positive. He was in his 70s. He was gung-ho. They were going to beat that record. And I was on my way to Michigan last March, and they just ended their mission conference. He said, Brother Lapish, we just took our collection, and we have enough money to buy 25 rolls of paper to reach people around the world. My goodness. Wouldn't it be nice if a church in South Florida beat that record? I saw a hand go up there. I saw a hand in the back. Man, did you raise your hand? 25 rolls? I think she was stretching. Hey, I'm having fun. I don't know about you, but this is a great ministry to have fun with. Another record. We give these coin banks away free of charge. I had a little teenage girl in Indiana. Their Sunday school started at 8 a.m. How many would come to Sunday school here if pastor decided to go for 8 a.m.? That might not pass. So I had to get up in Columbus real early to get there, and it was a very small church. And that 14-year-old girl came up. She said, Brother Lapish, can I have one of those coin banks? Because I usually set 2 or 3 or 4 out. And she says, can I have one? I said, sure. So she took one, and the pastor called me later that day. She had gone out all afternoon, door to door, and she had completely filled up this coin bank with change, with bills, and with checks for missionaries. A teenage girl all by herself. Not to be outdone, I was in southern Ohio a couple months ago, and a young man, 12 years old, bigger than me. His dad was pretty big too. He was strong, and he had filled up a coin bank. He had saved all the money. He cut grass all summer and saved it and put it in his coin bank. And he also filled it to the brim with change, with bills, and with checks to reach missionaries around the world. A 12-year-old boy. Now, I don't know if he likes older women, but if I could get he and that 14-year-old girl together, who knows what God might do with them. I've seen church groups pit the boys against the girls, and they give out 10 or 15 coin banks, and they go up in small groups in different streets to see who can raise the most money. You know, I pastored for 30 years, and I say this in a good way because my kids are part of the youth group growing up there, but sometimes they got spoiled. Oh, we've done that activity, we've been that activity, but when they could do something like this, boy, did they come alive. You know why? Because it's spiritual. It's not just secular. And a lot of things our youth groups are involved with that I see, and I have eyes, are secular in nature, and that's fine, but ultimately everything's got to lead to Calvary, even in our youth groups where the Bible and Christ ought to be the center of everything. We just might see more young people surrendering for the ministry if that was the case. The church who took the most coin banks was Massillon Baptist Temple. I was there for the college in the morning, Wednesday night, the Christian Day School the next day. They took 34 coin banks. I have now left over 1,600 of these coin banks everywhere I've been. Might someone here want a coin bank? I've got a van full of them. The Tract League shipped down some. I've already gotten rid of 4 today. I try to average 2 to 4 coin banks a church, so you can start the math on this. And they always get filled up, and the money always goes in. I get emails from the Tract League all the time. Well, this church you were at 3 years ago, send in a full bank of cash. And this is after the fact when the Lord keeps working on people's hearts. The church that collected the most change in pounds was a church that had 5 weeks of Sunday school campaign just for the elementary age kids, and this coin bank was too small, so they put out 5-gallon buckets all the way across the front of the church, and when I got there, they weighed each 5-gallon bucket on the scales that we have in our bathrooms, that you all have. 575 pounds of change that church collected from their kids in Sunday school for the Tract League. Well, I tell you, God's doing marvelous things in the hearts and minds of young people everywhere. If you'd like one of these coin banks, I have 2. I got more in my van. They're free. We just ask every year. You just count the amount and send it in. I have so many stories what people have done with these. Just absolutely amazing. A man took 2 after one service I was in and asked me if he could fill them up right now. I said, right now? You have that much change? He came back and he had 2 coin banks so full that the top wouldn't fit on. And I said, sir, how did you do that? I looked down, they were all quarters. And before he could answer, one of the sisters in the church said, Brother Lapish, he owns the laundromat next to the church. He did. It actually butted up to the building of the church because it was in a downtown of a small community. And thousands of millions and millions of tracts that bought. He had, I forget, $500, $600, $700. He emptied every washing machine and dryer and pop machine and any type of machine you can imagine in there. And he gave it all to the Lord. That was his weekend count. I tell you, that's amazing. Every Tuesday, what day did I say? Every Tuesday, we have a work day from 9 a.m. until 12 noon, where people come in from all over the Midwest, from states far away. When missionaries are home, they come in, and what they do is with these tracts that they print, they have millions of tracts printed every week, and they just stack them up to the ceiling all around the building, and then volunteers come in because if the tracts, they come out in paper this wide, and there's a perforated edge down the middle, and they have to be split apart, then rubber banded up, and all the like tracts have to be put in the right box to the right country. It's just really a big job. So volunteers come in from everywhere, and then you get a big meal at 12 noon, and they meet again the next week on Tuesday. I was in a church in North Florida. They probably had 1,000 people the Wednesday night I was there. I think they were snowbirds from Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan who were all down. And I asked them to drive up, and they all just laughed at me in a good way. We were having fun back and forth. Like, ha, right, Brother Lapish. We're going to travel 14 hours to Cincinnati to work 3 hours for a free meal and then drive 14 hours back. Nice try. We ain't, I know it's bad English, we ain't coming. Do you know what? 2 years later, they brought a van full of people up. They had such a good time. The following summer, they came again. I was in a church in North Carolina on the coast. I asked them to come up on the Tuesday, and they did the same thing. This time, we're not going to drive 9 hours to work 3. I said, come on, Brother Lapish, what are you asking here? I said, okay, I just ask every church. Their secretary emailed me a year ago, March, and they were renting a Greyhound bus and taking all of their adults to the Tract League to help the Tract League on their workday. Isn't that amazing? How does that happen? I just think the Holy Spirit of God squeezes hearts of God's children to get involved in this ministry. Because all the missionaries you support, we're probably sending them tracts. Somebody is paying to send them tracts. It's other churches just like you to get the job done. We would love to have a group from your church come up. You say, it wouldn't be a 14-hour drive. That sounds like a 20-hour drive one way. Probably so, if anybody's tried that. But I just throw it out there. That'd be a good road trip, kind of part of your bucket trip. things that you want to travel and see. So it's an amazing ministry how it goes. In just a second, I'm going to show a 5-minute or 6-minute DVD. We have some tracts back there on the table, and I highlight several tracts. We have one for our Roman Catholic friends. I know you can't see it, but if I say it, maybe you have a Roman Catholic friend. Why are you talking about Roman Catholics? Because my dad grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan as a Roman Catholic, and my mom refused to date him until he got saved. Maybe you have a Roman Catholic friend this would be good for. Here's one. When I pastored, probably the number one reason people would give me as we would go door to door why they wouldn't come to church or didn't want to be saved, says because they thought they were a pretty good person. I mean, they saw the Ford Pinto I was driving. Remember that bomb of a car? Oh, my goodness. And then they looked at their Cadillac in a driveway like, why do I need your God? We're pretty good, Pastor. You can just keep moving on. Here's one for the high school kids. You like to be a winner? They made a tract. They like to win. Here's another one for our teenagers. Is there something missing in your life? And here's a teenager with his head buried in his lap, his knees. And why is that? I think, so much drugs are going on with our young people. There's too much social media, all of the bad stuff on cell phones. Parents refuse to control the cell phones and put on special apps. I tell parents, and this is my 2 cents on cell phones, take it away and in its place put a flip phone. Won't be too, what's the word I want? Cool, but it'll keep them off a lot of bad places. Maybe that's giving them all this depression. Here's one, God loves the unborn. We could spend weeks on abortion, couldn't we? We could just talk forever on that subject. Have you believed another gospel? We have specific tracts for our Mormon friends and our Jehovah's Witness friends and our Muslim friends, people we meet and maybe at work or something. We like them. We want to witness, but we don't know how. We have special tracts for them. We have one on Messiah. That's for our Jewish friends. And I know Miami has a big population of Jewish people. My mom in Cleveland, Ohio, at age 6, walked down to the Cleveland Hebrew Mission, which was started by fundamental churches to reach the Jewish people in a suburb called Shaker Heights. In their effort to reach Jewish people, one day they reached a little Swedish Gentile girl, my mom, Harriet Mabel Matson. Her mom had died at age 6. She went home, told her sister, her 16-year-old sister Elsie, she got saved. They went and told their alcoholic father about the gospel. He got saved. And then when she became a professional ice skating teacher, she taught, are you ready? Peggy Fleming. Anybody know that name? Yeah. My mom was one of her teachers. So people from Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan flew up there to teach their children who were very good. So my mom met my dad. He was ice hockey. She was figure skating. And they dated. Then she realized, hey, I can't date him. He's not saved. So when that Jewish ministry reached my mom, she reached her family, my dad, and I grew up in one of the most marvelous Christian homes ever in the history of this country. I had parents who loved me, who told me they loved me. They hugged me every day. They provided. They set down chores I had to do. I had to get good grades or else. Dad was a World War II vet. He was 6'3", about 250. You say, Brother Lapish, what happened to you? Mom was 4'11", barely 100 pounds. Thanks a lot, Mom. Just amazing, the Christian home. We went to church. We never missed for anything. Boy, I tell you, I love my dad and Mom. They were my heroes. Why in the late 60s when people were doing drugs and they were going to San Francisco, they tried to get me to go? Why would I do that? I'm a Christian. I love my dad and my mom. I love what they do. I'm not going to run away from them. When we went to that inner city church, I think God wanted me to share that same type of home value to those inner city people whose homes had been broken so many times. A couple more. Why choose to abstain from alcohol? I always try to lift this one up. I go to churches and preachers tell me, I'm not saying complain, but they show their concern that some of their young couples and young singles are going to sports bars and drinking a few and saying, oh, it's only social drinking. Well, my Bible says wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Still needs to be bellowed out from the pulpits, whether it's in the church or our bully pulpit at home when we do our devotions. We need to talk to our young people about that. Final orders for our great and wonderful military who have given us the freedom, protection that we still enjoy today. And the last one I'll highlight is this one on hospitality. When you go out to eat, whether it's like a Bob Jones or Cracker Barrel or wherever, you leave a nice tip in here and put the church name on the back. And when that waiter or waitress sees that nice tip and they'll look at the back and read it inside, they just might come to church here. Now listen, if one here is a crummy tipper, do not put the church name on the back, right? Well, whose name should we put? Put the pastor's name on. He's not here to defend himself. We have great tracts. They work. We get them back in the mail all the time. What we have now is a 5-minute DVD, maybe closer to 6. It's brand new. It's only a couple months old. I've only seen it once or twice myself, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm leaving this coin bank there. I'll be at the back table afterwards, and my part is now done. Thank you.
My name is Alexis Givens. I was born in Costa Rica. I'm a result of the way God uses the gospel tract. One day while I was traveling, I needed to read something. So in my house, I just take a piece of paper, was laying right there. I start reading this piece of paper. And it start sharing what Christ have done on the cross for me. And for the first time in my life, I was exposed to the gospel.
I'm from Papua New Guinea. When I was in high school, back in the 70s, somebody gave me a gospel tract. And the gospel tract that I read, it strikes me. And it makes a lot of sense. Although I read the Bible and I go to church and I'm a religious person, but what I read from the gospel tract makes a lot of sense.
The gospel tract explained to me that I was a sinner. I deserve to go to hell. It also teaches me the wonderful story of Jesus Christ coming to die on the cross for me, to give me eternal life. God uses His Word, and through the Spirit of God started giving me conviction of sin.
I begin to realize that the condition that I was in, and then I begin to see the need for my soul and that to be saved.
So 3 weeks after, I went to church with a purpose in mind to get saved. That night, January 28, 1979, God saved my soul.
And when the Lord saved me, it changed my worldview completely. And what excites me is that salvation. And my desire was to see other country folks like myself that were lost in religion, and my desire to see them being saved.
I was called to the ministry. I ministered in Costa Rica, Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico, part of the United States.
Soon a lot of people get saved. And I was in the middle of soul winning. And it is through this soul winning schedule that I use a lot of time the gospel tracts, because they become very effective too. Because the gospel tracts have become a very important medium in which we communicate the gospel to the lost world. And today, in my church, and even in Papua New Guinea, gospel tracts have become our business card. And if you're saved and if you're a Baptist, we've got a business card, and that business card is gospel tract. And that's the way in which we relate the gospel to anybody and everybody that we meet.
It takes people to hand out tracts in their part of the world, in their country, in their community, in their neighborhood. If people do not hand out tracts, we have no reason to print them. The Fellowship Tract League was started in 1978 under Pastor Watch Pennington. He had desire to send out 100 million tracts free as the Lord provided from the Fellowship Baptist Church. Since that time, that goal has turned into over 120 million tracts a year. Since that time in 1978, we have sent out 4.8 billion tracts.
Fellowship Tract League has been instrumental in us to reach our nation. They sent us our first shipment of about 10 million gospel tracts, and we distributed all around the nation.
Our desire is to see every man, woman, boy, and girl in the world receive the gospel in their own languages. We print in over 85 languages for over 200 countries and territories around the world. One way that we're able to ship tracts around the world is by sea container. A 20-foot sea container will hold 10.5 million tracts. This is the most efficient way to get the gospel around the world, as it will only cost less than a penny for someone to receive the gospel in their language. As we move forward, we've printed about 5 billion tracts, but our goal is to reach everyone in the world. There's over 7 billion people in the world, and we're not reaching that goal right now, but our desire would be able to reach that goal before the Lord returns. Would you help us today with that? Would you pray for us? It takes prayer to get things done for God. It also takes finances, but we can send the tract to a soul somewhere in the world for less than a penny. Would you support the Fellowship Tract League today? A roll of paper costs $250 and will print 125,000 tracts.
Hello, I'm William Burrows, pastor of Fellowship Baptist Church in Lebanon, Ohio. In 1978, the church felt led of God to begin printing gospel tracts, and we are privileged to still have our part in fulfilling the Great Commission through the Fellowship Tract League. We realize, however, that the ministry could have never accomplished what it has without the churches and individuals who have banded together with us. By the grace of God, we have shipped gospel tracts into almost every country and territory in the world free of charge. Would you prayerfully consider banding together with the Fellowship Tract League, where the Great Commission is a daily commitment?
The same way God used that gospel tract, He's still using it to bring salvation to many people.
Knowing that you have given them the Word of God in the written literature, and sure enough, the Word of God will not come back in vain.